Trump is reportedly freaking out as the war he started against Iran is now putting his own life at risk. Every single move Iran makes in response to his reckless aggression is proving one undeniable fact. He cannot control what he started. The war is escalating out of hand, and his fear is making everything worse. By the end of this video, you'll see why the World Health Organization is now running nuclear fallout scenarios because of the war this man started. Let us start with the moment Trump's mask fell off completely. The President of the United States, in the middle of a military escalation with a nuclear threshold state, responded with a social media post that read like a man settling a parking dispute. He signed off with, "Thank you for your attention to this matter." Here's what that post actually said, and why every intelligence agency on the planet screenshotted it. After ordering a joint military strike with Netanyahu on Iran's South Pars gas field, one of the most critical energy assets on the planet, the president watched Iran burn the Middle East in retaliation. His response was not strength. It was not leadership. It was damage control. He claimed Israel had attacked the gas field out of anger. He downplayed the destruction. Then he threw his closest Middle Eastern ally under the bus, insisting the United States knew nothing about the attack and that Qatar was in no way involved. He was begging Iran to believe Netanyahu acted alone. Then, in his signature block capitals, the president issued what read, less like a directive and more like a desperate ransom note. He declared Israel would make no further strikes. He threatened that if Iran hit Qatar again, the United States would obliterate the field with devastating force. But then he undercut his own threat in the very same post, admitting he did not want to use that force because of long-term consequences. Every intelligence agency from Moscow to Beijing to Tehran read that post. And in the view of many foreign policy observers, the American president showed the entire world he could be pressured into retreat. Iran told Washington exactly what they intended to do, then they executed it step by step. Trump and Netanyahu hit the South Pars gas field. They caused serious damage. They believed they had scored a clean, decisive victory. Iran looked at the wreckage and responded with calculated fury. Every blow Trump landed, Iran hit back harder. That is a principle military analysts call escalation dominance, and Iran has been running the textbook on it. They targeted the facilities connected to South Pars, but operated by Qatar. Specifically, they struck the Ras Laffan industrial complex. If you do not follow global energy markets, here is what matters. Ras Laffan is not some regional processing plant. It is the beating heart of the global liquefied natural gas supply chain. That single facility in northern Qatar produces roughly 20% of the world's entire LNG output. Reuters reported that the strike damaged 2 LNG trains at Ras Laffan, cutting about 17% of Qatar's export capacity. The facility later came under fire again. The results were immediate and devastating, but Iran did not stop at Qatar. We will come back to why that matters for every American family in a moment. They also struck targets inside Saudi Arabia. Plumes of black smoke and fire were reported over Riyadh as Iranian drones carried out strikes inside Saudi territory. The Speaker of Iran's parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, stepped before cameras and declared that an eye for an eye is the new governing principle. He was staring directly at America when he said it. He told the world that the Iranian people had dismantled every plan the enemy constructed. He stated plainly that the United States and Israel, frustrated by battlefield losses, were now striking civilian targets in a desperate attempt to disguise their own failures. He called the American approach suicidal. That word was not chosen lightly. Now here is what that means for your wallet and your daily life. Oil prices have already surged past $110 a barrel. Energy analysts are openly warning that crude will blast through $150 in the near future. Every single day, working families across America are struggling to afford the gasoline they need to commute. The destruction Iran inflicted on Ras Laffan is not a problem you fix in a few weeks. You do not patch up a liquefied natural gas facility that supplies a fifth of the world's output with duct tape and overtime shifts. Reuters reporting indicates the damage could take 3 to 5 years to fully repair, with one damaged GTL facility taking up to a year. Even if a ceasefire were signed tomorrow morning, the shipping disruptions and supply chain fractures would persist for years. We are already seeing footage from developing nations that mirrors the worst moments of the 2020 pandemic. People lining up for miles, fighting over fuel that simply does not exist anymore. That crisis is not staying overseas. It is heading west. It is coming for the United States, and it is going to arrive hard. Share this with everyone you know, because the economic destruction from this war is heading directly for American households, and almost nobody is connecting the dots. Then the situation took an even more dangerous turn. While Trump was busy typing, Iran was learning. The administration has been confidently telling the public that the American military successfully destroyed all of Iran's ballistic missile capability. That is a complete fabrication. Defense analysts and open-source intelligence trackers have published data showing the opposite. Iran is firing more missiles now than during the opening phase of this conflict, and their accuracy is improving with every launch. Most people think the United States holds an overwhelming technological edge in this fight. In reality, that advantage has been severely compromised. With direct assistance from Russia and China, the Iranian military obtained precise coordinates for America's advanced anti-drone satellite networks across the region. They have systematically dismantled our radar systems. They have degraded our satellite coverage. Generations of technological supremacy eroded in a matter of weeks. As a direct consequence, Iranian forces and the proxy militias they support are operating with virtually zero resistance. In Iraq, Iranian-backed groups are openly broadcasting drone footage filmed directly above American military positions. First-person video showing they can hover, observe, and strike American troops whenever and wherever they choose. And this is where the threat reaches American soil. Reuters reported that unidentified drones were detected over Fort McNair in Washington, where Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio live. Officials had not determined the drone's origin. The airspace over the American capital is being probed, and the administration has no answers. Share this with everyone you know, because unidentified drones are flying over senior cabinet members in the nation's capital, and the Pentagon cannot explain it. Now here is the psychology that explains all of this chaos. Donald Trump has been a paper tiger his entire adult life. He operates through intimidation, volume, and manufactured bravado. When he holds the advantage, he is ruthless. But the instant he encounters genuine resistance, someone who refuses to flinch and stares back, he disintegrates. The legal system proved this repeatedly. Jean Carroll stood up to him and won. New York Attorney General Letitia James investigated his fraudulent business empire and prevailed. District Attorney Alvin Bragg brought felony charges and secured a conviction. Despite all of Trump's wealth and political pressure, they each stood firm, because once the bluster stops working, there is nothing behind it. Iran grasped this from the beginning. They recognized a fundamentally fragile leader incapable of absorbing real adversity. They applied maximum pressure, and the commander-in-chief crumbled. He did not rally the nation. He did not stand with allies. He threw Israel under the bus and begged Iran for mercy on social media. And what is his proposed military solution, according to Reuters? The administration is actively weighing the deployment of thousands of additional American combat troops to the Middle East. One option involves placing ground forces along the Iranian coastline to secure the Strait of Hormuz. It is nearly impossible to overstate how catastrophic that plan would be. But this is the trap a man like Trump inevitably falls into. His entire identity depends on projecting invincibility. When reality exposes that projection, he cannot retreat or negotiate. He overcompensates, he doubles down, and to feed that compulsion, he is prepared to send thousands of American sons and daughters into a kill zone. Then came the revelation that rattled the entire international community. The World Health Organization, an institution dedicated to public health, not military affairs, issued an extraordinary warning. The WHO has officially stated it is preparing contingency plans for a nuclear catastrophe in the Middle East. They are running worst-case fallout scenarios involving strikes on Iran's nuclear enrichment sites. United Nations personnel are actively monitoring for radiation threats. The WHO's regional director for the Eastern Mediterranean stated that a nuclear incident is the scenario causing the greatest alarm. He said that nothing can prevent the unimaginable harm to the region and the planet if a nuclear threshold is crossed. Those consequences would persist for generations. That preparation exists solely because of the man occupying the Oval Office. And what did that man do when confronted with this apocalyptic reality? He demanded help from the very allies he spent years destroying. He berated NATO relentlessly. He treated it like a protection racket. He slapped tariffs on allied steel and aluminum. He labeled Canada, America's closest partner, a national security threat. He erased the fact that NATO soldiers bled and died alongside Americans in Afghanistan after September 11th. Now, according to reporting from multiple outlets, Allied governments have expressed deep reluctance to support a war they were not consulted on. Oman, which has historically served as a quiet diplomatic channel between America and Iran, has been sharply critical of the conflict. Oman's foreign minister stated publicly that a deal with Iran had been achievable and criticized the path the administration chose. Even while Oman itself faces threats, their officials have made clear they view the war as a catastrophic misstep. Meanwhile, the January protests in Iran are real context that matters. Massive pro-democracy demonstrations swept through the country. Ordinary Iranians risked everything to demand freedom. Trump took to social media and promised them support. Then the regime unleashed its security forces. According to Reuters and AP, there was a severe crackdown involving mass arrests and executions tied to those protests. Trump took no meaningful action in response. He abandoned them because he never had a plan beyond the post. Now facing the full weight of his failures, Trump is performing wartime courage. A recent headline quoted him declaring he is unafraid of Vietnam-style ground combat in Iran. He has no fear of Vietnam-style warfare now, sitting in the air-conditioned security of the White House, ordering other people's children into the sand. But when he was a young man of military age, when it was his turn to face actual combat in Southeast Asia, he was petrified. Trump used his family's wealth to dodge the draft 5 separate times. He produced a medical exemption from a podiatrist who rented office space from his father, claiming bone spurs in his heels. Bone spurs that mysteriously never prevented him from playing golf or tennis for the next 5 decades. A 5-time draft dodger invoking the blood-soaked legacy of Vietnam to project toughness while feeding a new generation into a war zone is not just pathetic, it is obscene. Meanwhile, the bombardment of Israel continues without pause. Tel Aviv, northern Israel, and the central regions are enduring relentless, punishing strikes. Subway infrastructure has sustained damage. The physical framework of the country is fracturing. Yes, the United States and Israel are hitting back. Iranian targets are being destroyed. But the human toll is staggering. Reuters reported that a strike on the Shajareh Tayyibeh school in Iran killed 168 children, mostly girls, on the first day of the war. U.S. investigators believe American forces were likely responsible, though the investigation is not yet complete. These are the inescapable horrors of the war Donald Trump chose. Iran established one simple principle. Whatever you do to us, we do to you. They followed through on every single promise, and the President of the United States responded by blinking. By retreating. By posting on the internet that he had nothing to do with it and practically pleading to be left alone. That display of retreat, in the view of many analysts, taught Iran that it could impose retaliatory costs faster than America was willing to absorb them, because the man in charge showed no appetite for the fight he started. Arab nations across the region are watching this collapse unfold. They are watching Trump fold completely, and a terrible realization is settling in. They funneled enormous sums into private investment vehicles connected to the president's family. They purchased access and influence, not out of respect. They did it because they believed they were buying the ironclad protection of the United States military. Now, with their refineries literally ablaze, they look to America. And all they receive is a panicked president typing in block letters, whimpering about Qatar. Here is where things stand as of today. The South Pars gas field has been struck. Ras Laffan has been damaged, with Reuters reporting 2 LNG trains knocked out and roughly 17% of Qatar's export capacity offline for an estimated 3 to 5 years. Oil has surged past $110 a barrel. Unidentified drones have been detected over Fort McNair, where senior cabinet members reside, and their origin remains unknown. The administration is weighing deploying thousands of additional U.S. troops to the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz has become a direct flashpoint. Joe Kent has resigned and publicly stated his objections to the conduct of the war, and 168 children, mostly girls, were killed in a strike on an Iranian school that investigators believe American forces likely carried out. One thing is absolutely certain. The man who started this war has lost control of it entirely. Iran has demonstrated it can strike wherever it chooses, whenever it chooses. The global energy supply is fracturing, and the President of the United States has revealed to every adversary on the planet that he buckles under pressure. The coming days will determine whether this conflict spirals into the worst military catastrophe in American history, or whether some fragment of diplomacy survives to pull the world back from the edge.